Well, this is where we left off in video 1. We've got the main body of the little library made, and we've got the siding on. In this video, we're going to focus on doing the roof and finishing up both libraries. Let's get started. In order to waterproof the roof, we're going to use this self-sealing adhesive membrane. I'm starting at the bottom and working my way up, overlapping each layer. When we get to the peak, one piece will overlap both sides. And now for the roofing. I had an idea. I've just taken a piece of our lap siding and I've raised the saw blade up barely any out of the table so that it makes really shallow grooves. And using my T-square, I'm making random grooves on the face of the siding. And this gives the effect of individual shingles, but it's one waterproof piece. We're going to use staples to put the roofing on. I think it'll hold better. Plus they're the only thing I had short enough that wouldn't go all the way through into the box. To do the next row, we flip this one upside down and we make marks where we want these grooves to be, making sure that none of the lines match up with the line below it. This gives it a real life shake look. Then we just build each row up from here. I decided to use a little glue in between the rows so it'll help hold the shake even more. The last row on each side had to be ripped down because it was a little bit too wide. We're going to use a piece of aluminum flashing as a ridge cap. Here I'm just cutting it to width with a utility knife. Now I'm scoring it down the center to make it easier to fold. Now after cutting it to length, we're going to glue it down with some silicone. A few spring clamps will hold it down as it dries. Next, we'll turn our attention to building doors for both of the libraries. I've set up a stop block so that I can make repeated cuts the same length. And here they are dry fit. Before we assemble them, I'm running them through the table saw to create a groove for the plexiglass to go into. With my homemade pocket hole jig, I'm drilling pocket holes in all of the pieces. And then with glue on the hinge side only, we're going to attach them with pocket screws. We can't glue the outer edge yet because we'll have to disassemble it to insert the plexiglass later. Now we're going to install some hinges. These are just standard self-closing cabinet hinges. We're using a piece of scrap to hold the door up off the table just a little bit to give it a gap at the bottom. And now I'm going to clamp it in place when it's lined up and mount the door with some screws. I ended up having to pull the face frame off of the existing little library because the left side panel was a little narrower at the bottom, and this was causing the face frame to not be square and the door was not fitting flush. So I'm rebuilding the face frames here out of cedar. I've compensated for the unevenness of the left side panel by holding the face frame on the left up an extra 1/4 inch. Because of this, the bottom rail that goes across the face frame is going to have to be cut in a wedge shape. To fill in the gap underneath the left-hand face frame, we'll use a tapered cedar shim. We'll cut off the excess that's sticking out, and then fill in the rest of it with an even smaller tapered shim. And you can see that everything is even now. Let's work on the latch that holds the door shut. With a little glue and a couple of brad nails, I'm attaching a piece of cedar to the face frame. This cedar has a hole in it, so the latch can be screwed on and pivot in front of the door, and this holds it shut. Now I'm masking off everything so I can paint the new face frame on the children's little library. I don't have the green to match the original paint, so I'm going to make it multicolored. We'll do the face frame in blue, and now we're going to do the door in red. This gives the children's little library a whimsical look. Now we need to cut the plexiglass for the doors. Here I'm using a plexiglass cutter, which is really a plexiglass scoring tool. You run it along the edge several times and make a groove, and then you snap it over the edge of the table. Now the only thing holding it together is the protective film on the plexiglass, and I cut that with the razor blade easily. Now let's disassemble the door so that we can insert the plexiglass in it. Peel off the protective layer, and it slides right in the grooves that we cut earlier. Now we screw the end back on the door, and we have a completed door. I'm going to add some trim to the gable ends of the adult little library. This is going to make it look better, plus it's going to fill the gap at the top where the substrate meets underneath. I've just mitered the ends, and now I'm marking it for length, and after I cut it, I'm just using some brads to hold it on. And now we'll do the same on the other end. That's a big improvement. Here I'm cutting some pieces of 1/4 inch plexiglass to size on the miter saw. I decided to put these in the bottom of the little libraries for the books to sit on. That way if any water gets in, it won't soak up into the books. And here we see the finished little libraries. The adults is on the left in cedar, and the colorful whimsical one is the children's on the right. As an example, I've stocked it with some books from my childhood. Oh, one of my bedtime staples. I still get a tear in my eye when I think about Mom reading about potassium permanganate glycerin igniters. Those were the good old days. Well, here we see the little libraries all installed and ready to be filled with books. I think they turned out pretty good. I think the neighborhood's going to really enjoy them. And I hope you enjoyed this video series as much as I enjoyed making them. And as always, thanks for watching.